Hi, it's Mat McLachlan with a special invitation. If you'd like to join me and my team of outstanding historians to walk the ground where these videos were made, visit our website and join one of our battlefield tours. That's battlefields.com.au. Enjoy the video. Pete, we're standing at probably one of the most important spots at Gallipoli, at least from an Anzac point of view. This is the headland known as Ari Burnu, but to Australians and New Zealanders, this is the place where the first Anzacs came ashore. In fact, just here, just on this headland, just behind us. Paint the picture for us. What was it like on that first morning, April 25, 1915?
It's pretty dark, a lot of confusion. Boats bunching together, people making decisions that have a terrible impact on where they'd land. And they all end up, all of them, round here. And it's amazing to think of them all jumbled up. And you know, you have an order of command in a unit, you have sergeants, you have officers, and suddenly you're with people everybody's muddled up. And that has a real impact, as you know, has a real impact on what happens. And
Now, we've heard the stories about this, and I think there's a perception that the Anzacs came ashore under a hurricane of machine gun and rifle and artillery fire. Was that the case on the morning of the landing?
No, it is in many ways, and I don't want people to get the wrong idea here. It's an unopposed landing. There are a smattering of shots from the people up there, but on Ari Burnu and on Bloodiest, but it's quite dark. There's a smattering of shots for the first wave. And they're quickly overrun. There's a famous photograph of the beach with just one dead body on it, which is very different from say a V beach or W beach. The real trouble doesn't happen here; it happens up there, in the ridges and the hills, and then it is terrible fighting. And also behind us at Fisherman's Hut, where there is again slaughter of some of the boats coming ashore. The second and third waves do get more fire, but the first wave, it's relatively unopposed.
And this doesn't take anything away from the landing. About 2,000 Anzacs were killed or wounded in that first day of fighting. But it's just important to understand, this is why we come and walk the ground. You stand on this beach, you should remember this beach as the first place they came ashore, but not as the place where most of the killing and dying occurred. That occurred in the hills behind us. Pete, we're standing here on the beach at Anzac Cove, what I like to say the most important part of Australia that's not actually in Australia. This was not only the site of the landing, it was also the key base for the entire Anzac force for 8 months at Gallipoli. Just paint us a picture of what this was like during the peak of the fighting.
I think you'd have to say it's a hive of activity. It's just buzzing with people, stacked high with stores, ammunition, everything you could need for thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of men, and they all have to be supplied from this small area. It is ridiculous. And how they managed, I have no idea.
It's kind of hard to imagine it while we're standing here. I mean, every time we visit a battlefield, it's hard to imagine, but you get a spot that's this iconic, and you just think, piled high with stores, donkeys coming up and down, men going up and down to the front line, naked men swimming in the water, dodging lighters as they come into flimsy piers, and constantly the din of fighting. It's been said that when new men arrived at Gallipoli, they stepped off the boats onto the sand of Anzac Cove and thought the Turks were about to land on them at any minute because the noise from the high ground behind the front line was constant. And the other thing that always strikes me is there's no rear area at Gallipoli. There's no safe spot to go where you're going to be out of the fire. So even when you're not in the front line, even down here on the beach, you're still exposed. You're still at risk of being wounded or killed.
Well, behind us now, there's Gabba that can pour fire in here. The whole place, you're always in danger. You're never safe. And the mental stress of that must have been incredible. They're not in the line for 1 or 2, 3, 4 days like on the Western Front. They're in the line from when they land to when they're ill, get evacuated sick, or they're wounded, or they're dead.
Pete, we're here in what must be the most beautiful Commonwealth cemetery in the world. I mean, it's a stunning place. We're lucky with the weather. It's a fantastic day. What a beautiful place, but obviously tinged with great sadness. It's the paradox you always get on a battlefield. These places that were once just hell on earth are now a little piece of paradise right where we are.
Just beautiful.
It's a magnificent cemetery, isn't it? A hospital cemetery. The poor blokes who died of wounds after being brought down out of Shrapnel Valley, all of them lie here now in this beautiful and very peaceful place.
I think it's so beautiful here. You can spend hours just thinking, well, this is a great place to be dead, but of course it isn't, is it? Nowhere's a great place to be dead, but it is beautiful.
The thing I love about the Gallipoli cemeteries is they all tell a story. As we walked in here and scanning the headstones, you see men who died in the opening days of the campaign. You see men who died into May and June as the front line settled in and the fighting became quite severe. There was the big Turkish attack in May, so the fighting really started to ramp up. And then we've even got burials here from August, the big fighting, and then later in the campaign as well. This was a hospital throughout the campaign. Yeah. And you can tell that story by walking and just scanning any row of headstones. It's quite a window into history, isn't it?
It is, and there are particular graves that really resonate. I love the one that says just over there that says well done, Ted. I mean, how can you not get just a twinge?
It's heart-wrenching, isn't it?
Even in the most blackened Australian heart.
And do you still get that level of intrigue when you come to these cemeteries, Pete? You've been visiting these cemeteries and cemeteries all over the world for decades. Do you still get that buzz when you first come in?
Thanks, Matt. Yes. Coming to a place like this is always special. Whether it's the first time or the 30th time, it's a fantastic place. It makes you think. It makes you think about the people who are lying all around us now. It makes you think about lives lost. Makes you think about deeds of heroism. I'm a couple of feet from Simpson's grave. That there are so many stories. There's Beige over there, who remember we loved going to Silt Spur. Well, there he is lying there.
He was part of Mawson's Antarctic expedition, and here he lies several years later at Gallipoli.
Brawned, there's just so many things how can you be bored? How could you not love this place?
We should talk about what is the most notable grave in this cemetery, the one that most people come to see. Simpson, the man with the donkey. Quite an enigmatic character. He's probably not all that we think of him. It's that fascinating thing, the difference between the Gallipoli myth and the Gallipoli legend, because he absolutely is a legend. But I think in some instances people don't remember him quite in the right way.
No, they don't. For a start, he's the great Australian hero, born in South Shields. He's British, but he deserted from the Merchant Marine and joined the Australian Army when the war started, the Medical Corps. He had a unique role, I think. He used his initiative to get donkeys to carry the men out. I just can't believe how brave he was. I've been in Shrapnel Valley. You see at the top where the machine guns are, and they are there then in May, and rescuing the lightly wounded. I would emphasise this. No point if you shot through the head, no point being taken out on a donkey. Shot in the guts, no. Anywhere in the chest, but arm, leg. And the important thing is you get people out of there before they're hit again. And he was doing a vital role. I think you did some research once and found that there was very little mention of him until you looked for another name, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There was no mention of a man called Simpson, very little mention of a man and a donkey, but there was a lot of mention of a bloke called Scotty that saved a lot of men. And again, it was his strong Geordie accent from the north of England. The Australians all thought that he was Scottish, so his nickname was Scotty. But they held a lot of affection for him at the time, and obviously Australians have ever since.
And I've always found it. I always pay my respects at his grave. Obviously at the other graves as well. But that is, I don't know. I'm from Britain, aren't I? So I suppose he's very special to me. A real hero.
Bulent, we're standing in Lone Pine Cemetery, but what might not be immediately apparent is that this is actually the entire battlefield of Lone Pine, that the Australian lines were over there, the Turkish lines were over there, and what was the battlefield is now a cemetery. Tell us a little bit about some of the bloody fighting that went on here.
The size of the battle, 2 or 3 football fields, not too big area. Was one of the bloodiest fighting actually for Gallipoli, between the Turks and the Australians. What was happening 6th of August, the beginning of the Battle of Lone Pine. When the Australians charged, they were in the Turkish position over there. And after that was one of the bloodiest fighting again, because of fighting over there, like hand-to-hand fighting, they used everything, like hand grenades, rocks, stone, whatever, what they found. Not only 6th of August, 7th of August, 8th of August, 9th of August, all the bloodiest fighting actually here. And then finally, what was happening was over the Battle of Lone Pine. And after the 3 or 4 days, the casualties, huge numbers, you know. And the Turks, the reason called for this area, not Lawn Pine, we called Kanlı means like a blood ridge or blood ridge, you know.
It certainly was very bloody. I know that the Turks had covered their trenches with logs, and the Australians had to pry them up, and then a lot of fighting took place below ground, didn't it?
Yeah, because the Turkish position at Lawn Pine, most of the position, like especially I think first 2 or 3 lines covered with all like the pine logs. They covered them with all like the earth as well. The reason for good camouflage, for protection from the shell fire. But the Australians again, 6th of August, when they charged, when they were top of the Turkish position at Lawn Pine, they lifted all like the pine logs, and then they jump into the Turkish position. And after that, as I said, the bloodiest fighting for Gallipoli.
Tell us a little bit about that fighting. What was it like, the Australians fighting against the Turks once they got into those Turkish trenches?
And then when they captured the Turkish positions, and then the Turkish counter-attack, and then recaptured again, Australian counter-attack, captured again, like kind of, we said all the time, like tennis match, you know, like ping-pong match, back and forth, like at the positions at Lawn Pine for next couple of days.
And of course, 7 Victoria Crosses were earned by Australians here. So
7 VCs Australians awarded.
Lots of acts of heroism in this Turkish fighting.
In Turkish side as well, you know. Yeah.
What does it mean for you as a Turkish person to stand on hallowed ground like this? Because we tend to think of Gallipoli very much in Australian and New Zealand terms. What does it mean for a Turkish person?
For Turkish person, like for this place, like for Anzac battlefield, 2 things like for Turkish side. It's one of them, 19th of May. Turks they charge, end of which thousands of casualties. I can say the second part at Anzac for Turks, sad part. This is the place. Lawn Pine, or Turks called again Kanlı, one of the most casualties like for Turkish side during Gallipoli at Lawn Pine after the 19th of May, you know, the Turkish counter-attack.
And in the last 10 years or so, we've seen a huge increase in the number of Turkish people coming.
Yes, last 10, 15 years, the numbers like for Turkish side, huge numbers. So every year, like 5 million, 6 million Turks coming to Gallipoli Peninsula. Like Turks, they believe all the time, this is the place, the bird of the nation, the bird of like Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the bird of like a Republic of Turkey, you know. And there are other things like we called for Gallipoli, like last castle, the last stand. Because the reason Ottoman were fighting all the time out of the country, but this is the war for a long time, the first time. We're fighting for like the homelands, because they knew if they lost this battle, they lost everything.
This must rate as one of the most tragic sights in the Anzac sector at Gallipoli. It's the neck, made famous in films and stories and documentaries ever since the campaign, and it's where the men of the Light Horse from Victoria and Western Australia charged across this narrow little strip of ground to almost certain death. It was just a pointless and horrific chapter of the campaign, wasn't it, Pete?
It was one amongst many, but it's one that somehow just tugs at heartstrings that bit more. It's just so well documented that it really makes you could sort of identify with the people and them pinning their last messages on the wall of the trench. the questions of commander, why they're allowed to do it, why they didn't stop it. Why didn't they stop it?
It's just unbelievable. 4 waves of men went out of the trenches that are still here. You can walk through these trenches and explore them. 4 waves of men charging over to a hail of fire. The first wave at least didn't know what they were getting in for, but imagine being in the following 3 waves, having seen your mates absolutely blown to oblivion without getting more than a few feet, and knowing you were going to have to go with them. Just incredible bravery.
It is, and I can't imagine it, but also somehow it symbolises for me the futility of the campaign. The whole campaign is just awful. It's just a futile waste. I don't know what you feel about it.
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Pete. In a campaign that was absolutely full of stupid decisions, pointless attacks, wastes of lives, nothing compares to this one. It's small by the scale of Gallipoli, but horrific for the number of men who died in this area where we're standing, which is now a cemetery. Yeah. There's more than 350 bodies beneath the ground behind us, and most of them had lain out there until after the war. They came and gathered them up from an area they described as the size of 3 tennis courts. And we're standing here now. These are the 3 tennis courts. I think that's even generous. I would say 2 at the most.
Yeah.
You can't quite understand the horror of what went on here, and I think that's a good thing. We want to appreciate it, we want to pay our respects, but I don't think any of us want to actually go back in time and witness it firsthand. It's a sort of place, I think, mate, that is a really wonderful place to end our journey, just to pause and think about what it all means and to pay our respects to the blokes that lie here.